The first time I saw Julian was at my wedding to Chase. Following Chase's lead, I called him Julian. His face darkened. Don't call me that. Everyone assumed he simply disapproved of me. None of them guessed that, on countless nights, he would slip into my room and hover over my sleeping form with hungry eyes. Madeline, you will be mine, sooner or later. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Marrying Chase had been a move born of desperation. The Hayes family needed a massive capital injection, and only the Vance family could provide it. The Vances were no philanthropists. The fastest way to unlock that investment was a strategic marriage. When the Vance heir took a bride, the entire business world took notice. Our guest list overflowed with industry titans, and even Chase's globe-trotting Uncle Julian flew in. Chase guided me toward him. Madeline, this is Julian. Smiling, I met Julian's gaze. He wore a midnight blue Zhongshan jacket that set off striking looks. A faint resemblance to Chase shimmered in his features, yet next to my carefree groom he felt austere, like a god who tolerated no mortal trespass. Sweetly, I echoed, Julian. His cool eyes flicked, brows pinching. Don't call me that. His tone was colder than his expression, and he rejected my address in front of the whole room. Embarrassment hung thick as fog until Chase tugged me behind him with a laugh. Julian's joking, don't be scared. Julian lifted his gaze to me and said nothing more. The ceremony itself flowed flawlessly, but word spread quickly. Julian wasn't pleased with his new niece-in-law. The knowledge soured my stomach. Later, outside the powder room, I ran straight into him. Julian. He stopped, not bothering to turn. I said, don't call me that. I'm married to Chase now. He calls you Julian, what else am I supposed to call you? I snapped, courtesy eaten by irritation. I'd bent over backward to qualify as Chase's bride, Andy, Richard and Victoria applauded my every step. Only this previously absent uncle had flown home to humiliate me. Unruffled, Julian offered a mild, suit yourself, and strode back toward the ballroom. I remained there, branding him rude and impossible, though thankfully he lived abroad and our paths would rarely cross. Wait, Julian's moving back to take over the domestic business? I nearly leapt from my chair when Chase mentioned it. Chase didn't notice my alarm, he simply sipped his coffee. Grandfather summoned him. Heat flared in my chest at the memory of the wedding slight, yet this was hardly the moment to indulge it. I thought grandfather wanted you to run things, I said, setting a croissant gently on his plate. He shrugged. You know me, zero interest. Zero interest? I'd schemed and sacrificed to marry him, and he couldn't be bothered? That won't do, your mother will be heartbroken, I cooed, pushing harder. Disappointment shadowed his eyes. Fine, whatever. He abandoned the croissant, grabbed his jacket, and left. The click of the door ushered in brittle quiet. I inhaled, turned, and smiled at the maid. Fetch my white hand-embroidered silk scarf from upstairs, please. Of course, ma'am. The instant she vanished, I attacked the croissant with my fork, shredding it to pieces while cursing Chase and stuffing every crumb into my mouth. Mid-swallow, I spotted Julian in the doorway, haloed by the hall light. A tailored obsidian suit, snowy shirt, he blocked most of the morning glare. I swallowed too fast and choked, gulping milk until the lump subsided. As he approached, I popped up, manners forgotten. UUNC, Vance, I corrected breathlessly. Approval flicked across his brow, though he stayed silent, simply extracting a napkin and offering it. I stared, frozen, until the maid's footsteps floated downstairs. Julian leaned in and wiped the crumbs and milk from my lips as casually as if polishing his own. The maid's shocked Vance rang behind him. He folded a napkin, tossed it away, and strolled to the sofa. Chase didn't mention it, he asked once I'd reclaimed my composure and taken the scarf from the maid. He ordered black coffee, then answered me. I'll be living here for a while. Wait, what? Chase hadn't told me the villa was Julian's. I never thought he'd come back, Chase said, unfazed. He looks gruff, but he's decent. Relax. A shiver ran through me. We're newlyweds, we might disturb him. Chase nodded. We'll sleep separately for now. My jaw dropped. Who spends their honeymoon in separate rooms? Seeing my horror, he softened. Julian promised to buy us a new place, but the feng shui consultant needs time. Once it's ready, we're out. I forced a smile and released his sleeve. To compensate, he began wiring me generous allowances. Honestly, money minus spousal duties sounded like paradise, until Julian inserted himself. Freed from the Vance ancestral estate, Chase partied harder, rarely coming home, so I saw more of Julian than of my own husband. Vance, I greeted one evening as he headed out. He nodded without breaking stride. Our exchanges rarely went beyond that, my courtesy, his silent shrug, until the silence snapped me. Vance, about the new house, any update? I called as he reached the door. He paused. I'll bring the brochures in a couple of days. You pick. His tone was flat, yet my spirits soared. Thank you, Vance. I hummed. Will you be back for dinner? Business dinner, he replied. Drive safely, I sang, already tasting freedom. That night I popped a bottle of red in celebration and fell asleep within minutes. Half conscious, I sensed the door ease open, the mattress dip, the mingled scent of alcohol and cool foreign cologne. A warm arm looped around me, a husky whisper brushing my ear. Madeline. It's mortifying to admit, but I'd had an odd dream. Define odd, Skylar demanded over bubble tea. I chewed my straw, cheeks burning. There was a man. Not Chase. She choked on a mouthful. You had a wet dream? I wanted to sew her mouth shut. Luckily we were in a private booth. She wiped her chin. Relax, it was only a dream. Meanwhile, Chase isn't limiting himself to fantasy, trust me. I blinked. What do you mean? She tapped her phone screen a couple of times, then handed it to me. Before I could even take it, the headline glared up at me. A post titled Young Master Vance Rekindling Flame, Checks into Hotel with First Love had clawed its way to the top of the trending tabloid list. Chase hadn't come home for a week. I just hadn't realized he'd spent that week with Bianca. You two literally just got married, doesn't he have any decency? Skylar slipped the phone back into her purse and shot me a teasing look. I was actually worried about you on the way over, but I can see I wasted the gas. I squeezed the phone, stood up, and ignored her. Where are you going? To the Vance ancestral estate. Only Theodore and Richard Victoria still live there. Richard rides Chase harder than a drill sergeant, so marrying me gave Chase the perfect excuse to move out. I gladly gave him his exit. I never enjoyed family politics anyway. Madeline, sweetheart, when that little bastard finally shows his face, I'll tan his hide, Victoria said, patting my back while cursing her son. They'd seen the same morning headline. They'd already called Chase before I arrived. Hearing her, I pretended to cry even harder. I was still fishing for something appropriately pitiful to say when a shadow filled the doorway. Julian. So you finally remembered where we live, Theodore growled from the head of the table, eyeing his nephew. Julian looked straight at me, something almost bright flickering in his expression. For no reason at all my heart jumped. I buried my face in Victoria's shoulder and kept sobbing. He stepped inside, voice cool but gentler than usual. Came to see you. Theodore humped again, yet the sound carried unmistakable satisfaction. Julian had barely taken the seat opposite mine when the culprit finally showed. On your knees. Theodore's command cracked like a whip. My fake tears died mid-sniffle. Chase dropped with a terrified thud. It's a misunderstanding, he blurted. All I did was walk Bianca to her door. Those vultures only filmed the first half. Madeline, believe me. He shot me a desperate plea. If I backed him up now, the guilt would keep him wrapped around my finger for months. Before I could open my mouth, Julian lifted his teacup, unhurried. Yet you never came home last night. He didn't even bother to look up. Seems you haven't darkened the doorstep for several nights. Isn't that right, Madeline? His eyes flicked to mine, a ghost of a smile playing at the corners. Impossible to read. I'd forgotten Julian was in the house. Bailing Chase out with a lie might only bury us both and make the family despise me. I sniffled, neither confirming nor denying. You're disgraceful. Richard bellowed, lunging for the family cane. Victoria and I scrambled to block him. From the corner of my eye I saw Julian's slight smirk. Little Tiger anti-piracy stamp, use the Little Tiger bot for stable, scam-free reading. Chase is still young, Julian murmured. Needs tighter rein. I'd say we postpone buying them that new house for now. I hate Chase. We were days from moving out. Then I could have ignored whether he ran to Bianca or to the ends of the earth. Now he's lost his freedom, and dragged me down with him. To keep him on a short leash, Richard handed him over to Julian wholesale. Starting that day, Chase was marched into the corporate tower every morning. Chase not joining us again tonight? For the third evening in a row the dining table held only Julian and me. It felt weird, as though I'd married Julian instead of Chase. Julian set down his chopsticks and regarded me, dark eyes unreadable. He has plenty to learn. You object to overtime? Loaded question. Say yes and I'm the wife who hates ambition. No, just worried he'll burn out. I babbled tea. He first lie that floated by. Julian rose, already Arctic features icing over. The young mead grinding, where excess energy finds the wrong outlets. He headed upstairs. So he meant Chase's rendezvous with Bianca. He was defending me? Maybe he didn't hate me after all. The thought relaxed me, the food actually tasted good and I overate. When I came back from my walk, a maid was carrying a bottle of single malt upstairs. For Julian, she explained. I nodded. She added, he also asked if Madam would like a glass of the vintage red he brought home yesterday, helps you sleep. Good idea. I hadn't had a drink in ages. Bring it to my room later. Julian was right. The wine knocked me out. Yet someone seemed to push the door open in the haze. Too drowsy to move, I sensed a body stretch beside me, scent of liquor, breath growing heavy, arms wrapped around me. Madeline, a low, intimate voice murmured. Definitely not Chase. I jerked awake and bolted upright. Morning light slipped through the curtains, the bed beside me was empty. Another dream, who on earth was it? Skylar leaned closer, curious. Second time you've dreamed of Mystery Man. I gnawed my straw, irritated. I haven't the memory of that. Madeline cut in. Sounded oddly like Julian. Impossible. Julian never speaks that way, and he's Chase's Julian. Way too scandalous. Madeline. Skylar tapped my arm, pointing out the window. Didn't you say Chase was at the office? Across the street Chase was strolling along, with Bianca, her purse already in his hand. That son of a, I speed dialed him. What's up? He answered, reaching for her bag. Tell your starlet to wear a mask. She's supposed to be incognito. He glanced around, panicky. If Julian sees, even I can't save you. I hung up. Skylar gave me a thumbs up. Generous, Madeline, truly generous. Please. I married for money, not misery. But if I saw it, so could others. That night Julian slid a photograph across the dinner table. Thanks to last night's dream I'd avoided high gaze all evening, until the incriminating photo landed under my nose. They just bumped into each other, I offered weak. Julian's brows drew tight, he said nothing. Only after dessert did he rise. You really are devoted to him. I'm devoted to the Vance fortune. Husband and wife are one, I chirped. His eyes darkened, knuckles whitened around the photo. He turned and strode upstairs. Recently Julian carries a bottle to his room every night, and sends one to mine. Tonight I skipped it, I felt off. Midnight. Chase absent again. Half asleep, I heard the door ease open. A cool, faint fragrance rolled in with a wave of liquor. Soft footsteps stopped at my bedside. Cold fingertips traced my forehead, brushed my ear, settled against my cheek. Madeline, you'll be mine soon enough. The hoarse whisper brushed my ear. My eyes flew open. Julian's handsome face hovered inches away. Middle of the night. Man and woman, alone. Sleep evaporated. Julian chuckled and calmly sat on the mattress under my stunned stare. Light sleeper tonight? Was he implying the other times weren't dreams? Julian, I stammered, struggling to sit. The strap of my slip slid down my arm, way too much skin on display. I flopped back. It's late, why are you here? His gaze lingered where my hand clutched the neckline, his pupils were endless black. Finally he curved a slow smile. To do what I've wanted to do. With that he stretched out beside me, propped on an elbow, locked on my eyes. Just as I gasped, he pressed a single finger to my lips. Imagine how Chase would react if he found out. His whisper was velvet rough, impossibly seductive. Everyone is bound to believe I was the one who seduced Julian. After all, he's always acted as if women don't exist, like some immaculate shrine set too high to touch. Seeing that I had no intention of making a scene, he looked pleased, exactly as he had the 2 times before. The scent of alcohol mingled with cool cedar as he pulled me into his arms. Footsteps sounded outside the door. A crisp knock followed. Madeline. It was Chase. Are you asleep? My heart catapulted into my throat, yet the arm around my waist tightened almost imperceptibly. Julian's liquor-laced exhalations brushed my ear. Madeline, he whispered, voice pitched so only I could hear. Not a sound. In that instant shame swept through me. Suddenly I felt like the adulterous wife. 3 more knocks. Madeline? I held my breath, terrified the tiniest gasp would carry to Chase. The room was frighteningly silent. Must be asleep this late, Chase murmured outside, then turned away. Even after the footsteps faded I couldn't steady myself. Julian chose that moment to kiss me. Cool lips locked to mine, demanding, possessive. My eyes flew open and I shoved him away. Madeline, he said, not angry, actually amused. Holding your breath too long can kill you. In the faint moonlight leaking through the curtains I could have sworn his eyes were bloodshot at the corners, his smile crooked, wickedly different from the daytime Julian. I shrank back, frightened. Julian, are you drunk? I used the formal name hoping to jolt him back to reason. Instead, a long arm snaked around me and yanked me close again. He dipped his head and nipped my shoulder, painful, ticklish. I told you not to call me Julian. He lifted a finger, tracing my brow. Madeline, I'm not drunk. If you don't want this, I'll walk out right now. His voice was almost tender. I edged away without replying. He read the answer, sat up, and swung his legs off the bed. Just then footsteps approached again. I instinctively grabbed his hand. I barely tugged, yet he collapsed toward me. So Madeline does want it, he murmured. Julian left at 2 in the morning. I didn't sleep at all. I tossed and turned, unable to figure out where things had gone off the rails. That day the dining table actually held 3 of us at once. He took the seat opposite me, outwardly unruffled, as though the man who had slipped into my room last night were someone else entirely. Chase dropped beside him, bleary-eyed. Madeline. Chase yawned. When I glanced up, my gaze crashed into Julian's. I jerked my eyes away. You went to bed early last night, how come the dark circles? Chase leaned closer. I lowered my head. Couldn't sleep. Guilt. The memory of Julian's bite flashed back, my shoulder throbbed. Feeling Julian's lingering stare, I scrambled for a new topic. You came looking for me last night? Chase nodded. I picked up a slice of toast with forced calm. Need something? His nod froze halfway. He shot a covert glance at Julian. Nothing important. Silence swallowed the table. For some reason the minutes crawled. Finally Julian set down his cup and rose. Julian, heading to the office? Chase asked. He tilted his head toward me. A city trip. 1, maybe 2 months. The news untied the knot in my stomach. Chase looked equally relieved. The moment Julian was gone, both of us were free. Yet Chase still left for the office daily and rarely came home. I paid him no mind. After that night I only wanted to move out, far from Julian. To do that I needed Theodore's say-so. So I haunted the ancestral estate, courting the old man's favor until he greenlit a new house. To avoid second thoughts I personally inspected properties and finally chose a villa that ticked every box. The day the feng shui consultant arrived, Chase and Bianca hit the trending tabloid headlines again. A nightclub employee had leaked footage. In it, Chase was dead drunk. If the family didn't look down on Bianca for being an actress, why would I have married Madeline? She's lifeless, zero fun. All true, he'd said as much to my face, complaining I only pleased his parents and knew nothing of excitement. I didn't care. Only the Vance capital injection into the Hayes family mattered. I kept watching. A stunning woman slid onto the sofa beside him. Chase instantly pulled her close. Bianca, don't worry. Once I take over the company I'll divorce Adeline. Then no one can stop me, I'll marry you in the open. The line wasn't a thunderclap, but my heart still lurched. When Chase agreed to marry me, he and Bianca were already over. I'd thought their recent reunion was nothing more than nostalgia. Turned out he actually wanted a divorce. Vance, this site is blessed with excellent orientation. It will harmonize marital energy and prosper the household, the feng shui consultant said, snapping his compass shut. I nodded, had the driver take him back, and went to find Chase. I'd barely stepped out of the car at Vance headquarters when reporters swarmed me. Vance, what's your comment? Is the young heir really divorcing you? Did you come between him and Bianca? A deluge of absurd questions. I inhaled, about to speak, when someone draped a coat over me. A cool cedar scent closed around us. It's been ages since the Vance lawyers sued for defamation. Julian's calm voice sounded above my head. Care to be our practice targets? Julian was back. I had never been inside Julian's office before. Its decor matched the man, icy, sparse. I perched on a black leather sofa, cradling warm orange juice, studying Julian behind the desk. Silver-rimmed glasses in place, he was reading an urgent file his assistant had just delivered. He looked both businesslike and beautiful. And what was I thinking? That if only Julian had returned earlier I might have poured every ounce of ambition into making him marry me. What are you staring at? He lifted his gaze, the lenses softened the look he slid my way. Heat flooded my cheeks. Recalling that night and the audacity of my current thoughts felt downright treasonous. I dropped my eyes to the rippling juice. Nothing. Softly I added, thank you, Vance. He had hauled me out of the paparazzi swarm, gratitude was due. His eyes darkened, he pressed the intercom. Chase isn't here yet? The assistant replied, on his way, sir. Chase, dead to the world after last night's bender, had dragged him's LF here at Julian's call. He walked in just as I finished the juice. Julian ignored him, telling the assistant, another orange juice. The moment the door shut, Chase rushed to me. Madeline, I'm sorry, I didn't know. He stopped, Every syllable in the clip had come from his own mouth. I met his eyes. Didn't know it would be filmed? He pressed his lips, silent. Julian stood, rounded the desk, and sat opposite me. Little CI, he began, legs crossed, glasses off, gaze shifting from me to Chase. What's your plan? Chase scratched his head, lost. Julian's mouth curved slightly. Let me suggest one. Cut Bianca off. Tell the press she seduced you, that every word in the video was her idea. No way. Chase cut him off. We both stared. He bristled. Say that and what happens to her? She's worked years to get where she is, one sentence destroys her life. He looked at me, same as always. Madeline, you wouldn't be that cruel, right? I couldn't help laughing. Chase. I was done pretending. I lifted an eyebrow. I'm the one who just got called a homewrecker. Do you honestly think I have the patience to play nice? I'd never spoken to him like that before, and it left him frozen in place. For a moment the room went dead quiet. Then my assistant knocked on the door. Only after he watched me take the orange juice from her did Julian speak again. So you're going through with the divorce? He asked Chase. Chase sneaked a glance at me, stammering for a long while. Madeline, I'm sorry, he finally said, eyes squeezed shut. But I really love Bianca. Could you just let us be? I let them be? He still didn't grasp the situation. Whether I agreed to a divorce or not, the Vance family would never let him marry Bianca. On the ride back to the ancestral estate I sat in Julian's car. The privacy partition had been raised at some point. The cabin was silent, staggered neon lights slipped across the windows, tinting the air with a hazy, ambiguous glow. What are you planning to do? Julian asked. Ed suddenly, after who knew how long. The hands folded in my lap clenched slowly. Things had already blown up this far, clinging to Chase would only make me look pathetic. Still, a show of obedience wouldn't hurt. I'll leave it to grandfather, I murmured, eyes lowered like a docile puppet waiting for the Vance elders to decide my fate. Julian tilted his head and laughed. He had a beautiful smile, half his face caught in the shifting light, giving it an indescribable allure. Madeline, he said, the smile still in his voice, the same way it had been on those nights long ago. I jerked my head up in alarm. His grin widened, he wound a strand of my hair that had fallen onto the armrest around his finger. If you divorce, what happens to the Hayes family? He asked softly, studying the lock of hair. A shiver ran through me. I forced myself to stay calm. Chase is the one who wronged me. Even as compensation, the Vance Group won't pull its capital injection. True, but if the money stays, will that be the end of the trouble? His eyes flicked up, inscrutable. What if the Vances discover you're only Victor's illegitimate daughter? My eyes snapped wide, my right hand clamped over my left. It had been years since anyone had uttered the words illegitimate daughter. Julian released my hair and covered my hands with his, the icy pads of his fingers gently rubbing the knuckles I'd squeezed bloodless. But I have a solution. He parted my hands and smiled at me. I looked sideways at him. His smile deepened. Marrying Chase isn't the only path to becoming Vance. The words dropped like a pebble into the sea, surface calm, undercurrents raging. You wouldn't dare. When grandfather heard Chase wanted to divorce me and marry Bianca, he raised his ivory cane and brought it down on Chase's back in fury. Even Victoria, who usually spoiled him, didn't step in. This time, for some reason, Chase was obstinate enough to kneel in the main hall all night without a whimper. When I left the est. He was still there, spine straight, as though he'd rather die than marry anyone but Bianca. Madeline, don't worry. He's just possessed. He'll come around in a day or two, Victoria said, walking me out. I nodded and got into the car behind Julian. Neither of us spoke on the way back. Only the uneven rhythm of our breathing disturbed the silence. After an eternity my phone rang. Madeline, your grandmother's awake, a gentle female voice said. Before I could ask, Julian swung the car toward Riverdale General. Eleanor's lucid spells were shrinking, she spoke 2 sentences and slipped back into sleep. The best specialists here had no cure. There's a team in Switzerland devoted to this rare condition, Julian said as we sat together on the corridor bench. I looked at him through a film of tears. The overhead fluorescents shone at his feet, yet he seemed bathed in their light. At last I caught a fold of his jacket. Julian, if I divorce Chase, can I still be Vance? His gaze fell to my clenched fingers, hot as boiling water, scorching, but I didn't let go. I stubbornly met his eyes. He smiled. With pleasure. Chase knelt at the estate for a full night, then news broke, Bianca was pregnant. The Vance mansion exploded. I was still in bed, studying the slight frown on the man lying beside me. Last night Julian hadn't bothered with pretense. After his shower he'd slipped straight under my covers. Does this count as an affair? I asked. He shook his head. If only one of us is willing, it's closer to abduction. Fair point. I tried to get up, he sat first and pressed me back down. Sleep a little longer. He pinned me beneath him. The position was blatantly suggestive, heat surged through me from scalp to toes. On paper we were still uncle and niece-in-law. If anyone saw, 10 trending tabloid headlines wouldn't be enough. But I was overthinking. Julian had no intention of doing anything. He merely stroked my hair, then rolled away. I'll handle the rest. He never left loose ends. I don't know what he told the elders, but that afternoon Chase and I walked into City Hall. Only a 30-day cooling-off period stood between us and a finalized divorce. Feeling indebted, the family awarded me plenty of assets, including the villa I'd had my eye on. Julian personally handed me the key. Why do you have this? He curved his eyes in a smile. You have good taste, you picked my house. His house? But the agent had said the owner was rushing overseas. No, too many things felt off. I sat in my art studio, remembering the villa's second studio, almost a mirror of mine. That room had sealed my obsession with the property. I'd assumed the owner was a fellow artist. Yet Julian couldn't paint. The palette slipped from my hand, bright paint splattered my skirt. Staring at the stained hem, I thought of Bianca. Chase had cut contact long ago. How had he suddenly escorted her to a hotel, conveniently papped? Every coincidence reeked of Julian. He showed up at midnight, as always, like a fairy tale prince, or perhaps the dragon. Julian. I turned to him as he reached to pull me close. His eyes held a faint smile. Did you stage Chase and Bianca? He paused, then brushed the hair from my forehead. Why do you ask? Their reunion was too abrupt. He chuckled. Little Chase is young, he can't resist temptation. I stared at him. You're his uncle, did you pay Bianca to seduce him? His hand on my cheek stilled, then slid to the tip of my nose. Feeling sorry for him? His voice dropped, eyes darkening. 2 days left until the month is up. You can still back out. Can I? I asked. He smiled. I couldn't. Eleanor was already in Switzerland. The moment the divorce was final he would fly me there. The airport buzzed with noise. I'll come once I finish here, Julian said at the entrance. I took the passport and ticket he offered, walked a few steps, then turned. He hadn't moved. Julian, I called. Do you always hold every card? He looked at me in silence, answer enough. I nodded and walked away without looking back. I saw him again 3 days after Eleanor died. I sat alone in the dark, empty room when the door opened and light spilled in. I turned numbly and saw Julian in the doorway. Julian, I rasped. Grandmother's gone. The tears I'd held back finally fell. You said they were experienced, that they could cure her. I asked him, crouched before me, over and over. You said they could cure her. I was never the pampered Hayes heiress. Back then my mother had defied Eleanor, eloped with Victor, and came home pregnant and disgraced. Eleanor hated how little her daughter valued herself. Hated even more that she died giving birth to me. Eleanor raised my mother alone, then raised me. Life was bitter, yet sweet lay hidden inside. Until Victor found me. We slammed the door in his face together, sure he'd never return. Then Eleanor collapsed. In my world, Eleanor was everything. For her, I would do anything. But now Eleanor is gone. On her deathbed she stared at the lone tree outside and whispered, Look at that tree, little Madeline, doesn't it remind you of the one you used to climb? It stood beside the old house of my childhood. I had scrambled up for fun, then couldn't get down, wailing on a branch until dusk. The next moment I was lying on the same old wooden bed. Eleanor lifted my quilt and tickled my foot. Up you get, little Madeline, lunch is ready. Grandma. I struggled to open my eyes. A crystal chandelier glittered above. Julian sat beside the bed, gaunt, shadows ringing his eyes. Madeline, you're awake? I looked at him and parted my lips. Lunch is ready. Julian seemed to be everywhere but here. Days passed and I barely caught a glimpse. I needed to talk about the wedding. Eleanor was gone, yet every promise he'd made had been kept. I couldn't break mine. Julian's gone again today? I asked the maid. She nodded, embarrassed. I frowned. I need to see him. Doesn't he know? She lowered her head. I sighed. Bring me a bottle of wine. I poured the red into a goblet. One slow swirl filled the room with scent. Deep into night the fragrance lingered. Yet the glass in the corner remained untouched. Julian pushed the door open long after I'd slipped beneath the covers. When he sat down I opened my eyes. Why avoid me? He hadn't expected me awake and froze. Then a soft laugh. Madeline, you tricked me. I sat up. How did I trick you? He glanced at the open bottle, helpless. I clicked on the bedside lamp. Since you're here, let's be clear. I don't want to hear it, Madeline. His lashes cast shadows. The amber light made him look solitary as a wind-bent tree on a cliff. What do you mean? I narrowed my eyes. Suddenly you don't want me as Vance? Had the whole thing been a ruse to make me divorce Chase? Then what were all those kisses, those embraces? I wasn't head over heels desperate to marry him, but this felt like a slap. Julian's lashes trembled. He lifted his gaze in disbelief. Madeline. Fury flared. Listen, Julian, I'm not someone you can. Before I finished he leaned in and kissed me. Different from before. My heart hammered against my ribs. So he still wanted me as his wife. Madeline. Julian lay beside me, tightening his arms. I wriggled into a comfortable spot and mumbled an answer. No. His voice was barely air. My eyelids drooped. No what? I'm not invincible. His chin rested on my head, words soft and slow. I've always been terrified of your answer to one question, whether you'll stay. When I heard Eleanor was gone, I was scared to death. I thought the only chain that could hold you had vanished. That's why I came too late. I was half asleep, patting his arm. It's okay, it's okay. He laughed softly and kissed my hair. Our marriage would have to face the Vance clan sooner or later. I expected roadblocks, instead everything slid through. When we wed in M country it felt surreal. Relax, Julian whispered. They're too busy wrangling Chase to bother us. Chase? I frowned. What? T happened to Chase? Isn't Bianca pregnant? Julian brushed a kiss across my ring finger. Who told you that? A jolt of guilt. I'm starting to regret this, I muttered, scooting back. Julian scooped me up and dropped me on the mattress. Too late, Vance. Epilogue, Julian, I am the Vance bastard. My mother said she bore me solely for a shot at the family coffers. She poured every cent into polishing me, private piano tutors while we lived in a crumbling walk-up, so the Vances would find me too brilliant to discard. Back then I believed money was everything. Without it, no happiness. Then I met Madeline on the 3rd floor of tenement. She was 8, clutching a paper pinwheel, sprinting straight into me. A baby tooth flew out, blood dotted her lip. Ice ran through my veins. I'd have to pay, and my mother would beat me. But she didn't cry. She picked up the tooth, beaming. Finally. Thanks, big brother. The scene was gory, the grin was sunshine. I couldn't look away. After that I watched, followed, memorized her. They said she, too, was bastard born. Why could she glow while I rotted? I crouched beneath her window, stealing the sound of her lame jokes to Eleanor, filling my empty chest with their laughter. I was a thief longing for light. At 15 my mother dragged me into the Vance ancestral estate. I clawed my way into their good graces. She pocketed the $50 million payoff and vanished. The family never welcomed me, yet Richard praised my ruthlessness. Money piled up, enough to buy all of 8th and Madeline's tenement, yet happiness stayed blank. I told myself it was because she wasn't there. But I wasn't strong enough to bring her home, so I let Richard ship me overseas to conquer foreign markets. The night before I left, I returned to tenement. I left the car on the main road, picked through potholed alleys in clothes that cost more than the block. Heads turned. Yeah, my ears are calloused, a familiar voice sang out. A ponytailed girl darted past, outing, mischief curling her mouth. Her scent, soap and summer, brushed my nose. I clenched my fists. Madeline. I tried, mimicking Eleanor's lilt, but scrap collector's bell swallowed it. She vanished around the corner. I swore, when I come back, I'll claim her. 10 years abroad forged me into the heir no Vance dares cross. Chase, my nephew, was 14 when I left. When the family cabled news of his wedding, I ignored it, until I saw the photo. Who is Chase marrying? I barked at my assistant. Madeline of the Hayes family. Madeline. You were always meant to be mine.